Welcome, Three Brothers fans, friends, and family. We are back. The Three Brothers podcast is returning, and this is the first new episode in several months. Today, we find ourselves in two separate places. I'm actually in the 221 office right now, and we're going to have a nice little conversation about Three Brothers with my very good friend who hopefully is over there when you watch this recording. If not, I've already made a terrible mistake.
Yeah. Because from my point of view, yeah, Josh, you're all the way over there.
Oh, so we're both on the left.
Yeah.
But I am Josh Beadle, co-founder of Three Brothers Theater. And who are you, Rick?
I am Rick Adams, also a co-founder of Three Brothers Theater.
So I just thought it'd be nice as we bring back the podcast / video cast, to talk a little bit about Three Brothers and why did we do this?
I think for some of us, we've actually been asking that question since the inception, but we just keep ourselves too busy to actually really sit down and think about it over the campfire roasting s'mores.
Right? We do a really great job of keeping ourselves busy and ignoring the why. So let's begin.
Yeah.
As many years ago,
in a land far, far away, a land of corn stalks, a land of deep fried butter, a land of pork chops on a stick, and a land of Hawkeyes and Cyclones, Iowa. As a single, I suppose we don't really have tumbleweeds, so I guess just like a half bale of hay rolls by the screen in that case.
Absolutely. It's right here.
Like that, yeah.
So this whole thing started in Iowa City. For me, it was the third theater that I'd started. For better or worse. This one stuck though. For me, a lot of it was just giving myself the opportunity to do some things that I wanted to do. And it started off pretty selfishly from my point of view. How about yourself?
Oh, God. I think I was just looking for the next project to really work on. I mean, mainly. Because I still remember you coming to me with the original draft for Postcards 2, because I was still in rehearsal for Hairspray with City Circle at the time too. And I just knew that there was going to be, I was like, all right, well, I mean, I'm really enjoying doing this musical, and oh, cool, here's a one-person show that Josh has written. Okay, that seems like it'd be a ton of fun right there, really challenging. Yeah, I didn't really think too hard about like, oh, if this is another company that's gonna fail or succeed. I was just like, all right, well, opportunities are opportunities right there too.
It's funny to think of, and for those who don't know, Postcards 2 is the sequel to Postcards from the Post-Apocalypse. A fun romp through a terrible Hollywood B-movie zombie thriller, all played by Rick. And a play vomit written by myself. It's funny to think that script is that old.
Yeah.
Because at this point, we're talking about like 10 years ago. Well, not quite that long. Like 9 years ago.
Yeah, 9, I think, yeah. But still, it's a long time for, for the material to be so universal, or well, not necessarily universal, but that it can stand that test of time. Just kind of, well, one, not to inflate your ego, but kind of gives you a little bit of a nice pat on the back that you wrote something that actually could be that could stand up to the years going by and people still finding it one, hilarious, and two, topical as well, because I mean zombies are still going to be zombies and people are going to love them, and
just won't go away.
yeah. My God, it's like the horror cliches are actually true, because the undead just keep coming and coming. You just can't kill it.
And at that point in time, we were talking about how like the zombie phenomenon was getting old.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's like 3 years, it's going to be gone. There's going to be something new. But I think that was like we were kind of expecting like the vampire werewolf Twilight thing to kind of take off too, if I remember right.
Think so.
Well, no, because you guys were screwing around with me and commenting about how I was going to go see Twilight some night. That last year we were living together in Iowa City. Jackasses.
Well, I'm not sure if it was a good decision still, but I've been steadfast. I still haven't watched a single one. So feel it's a positive life choice on my part.
Yeah. Nothing against anybody that loves Twilight. I mean, you go ahead and do you. But yeah,
Right.
No.
Good for you.
You have a stronger willing constitution than either of us.
Right. So, so in that first year, what did we even do? Like that first year, I know we spent it in Iowa City.
Yeah.
We took a little weekend trip to Des Moines to do some shows.
Yeah, that was a very eye-opening weekend too. Oh boy. Yeah, because we did Postcards as kind of the inaugural show. Then I don't know if we really did anything around the holidays, but I remember we came back with the improv show in the winter time right there too. And did we have Men Misbehaving going around that time as well?
I think we did it that first year. I think.
Yeah, I know we did it the first year, yeah, because we
don't
did
know when.
travel as well. But yeah, I think that was another wintertime show too. But no, just that whole weekend in Des Moines was just so eye-opening, because I just remember rolling in there and thinking that, because we actually had decent turnouts for all the shows in Iowa City, and of course in PS1, which for those of you that have never experienced Public Space 1 or the small storefront rental spaces in Iowa City, it was essentially a basement of a business with ceilings that were probably 7 feet tall, a stage that was maybe 6 feet, and an audience that was made up of couches and benches. And yeah, I think wasn't there like a subway right above us?
It was underneath the
across the
subway,
hallway.
so it had a lovely smell.
Oh god! Except when we had to do a
Sandwiches.
show on Friday, Seafood Sensation Friday. Oh god, it was awful.
They're no longer located there anymore, by the way. They have a nicer facility from what I've heard.
Well, I feel like that's
wrong.
Not really. Well, when you're upgrading from that, I mean, it doesn't take much. I mean, a fresh coat of paint on that thing would have given it a massive upgrade, I feel.
And at that point, we were part of the reason why we went to Des Moines was we were trying to. So for those non-Iowans out there, Cedar Rapids and Iowa City are like 30 minutes away from each other. Des Moines 2 hours. So the thought process was, let's tour shows to different markets. The problem was that we hadn't figured out the promotional end of it. So like Cedar Rapids and Iowa City, we were fine, but going to Des Moines was like,
oh, it just an unmitigated disaster. And again, it truly was for Iowa City and Cedar Rapids. We knew plenty of people, so we knew we would be able to count on that good word of mouth press right there too. Going into Des Moines, I mean, we knew maybe 2 or 3 people, but we figured, I mean, people are going to want to see the stuff that we have coming out. I mean, it's funny. It's kind of edgy. I mean, it's something that is different from the big civic center, like big touring shows that are going through Des Moines at the time. But getting there and then realizing that one, we didn't have a promotions plan, and two, we didn't think about promoting it vastly ahead of time as well, did not help. And especially still remember that Saturday we went to the farmers market and we were like, hey, we're just handing out flyers like, hey, do you guys want to come see a show? You want to come see a show? You want to come see a show? Which that was I definitely have a lot more respect for the people in Vegas and New York that hand out those flyers day in and day out. Like, oh yeah, you have a much stronger.
Resulted in 0 increased attendance.
Oh yeah.
I think at that point though that there was a root of weird camaraderie that was forming. I mean, obviously the two of us lived together during that time, and almost everyone that was involved was a friend or a friend of a friend.
Yeah.
But it seemed like we weren't like eating, sleeping three brothers at that point, but it was more of like we're goofing off and we do theater on the side. So there was a nice there was a sense of like togetherness, I guess I feel like in some capacity.
Well, when you nosedive as hard as we did, I mean, it's a very galvanizing moment for anybody, I feel.
Right. And then we picked up and we moved out here into Illinois. So the Illinois story is interesting to me just because we've got like the prototypical theater story. A lot of things happened to us that people imagine and hope will happen to them when they start a theater. So Rick moved down into Chicago and I moved into the suburbs because I met Caroline, who would become my wife, and is involved with theater, for those who don't know. But we started off, Caroline had read about some things that were happening in Waukegan in downtown about how they were really trying to brand this arts and cultural district in the downtown. And so we took a tour of downtown with a young lady by the name of Violet, who was the executive director of Waukegan Main Street at the time, and had a really great experience meeting some people out on the street, some great artists and business owners, and they introduced us to a theater company called Clockwise that was in the location that we're now in at 221 North Genesee. And we actually produced our first show in Waukegan in that space with renting from Clockwise. And that's where we met kind of the first theater people up here, most notably Madelyn Sergel, who really helped us make the show happen. And then we just lucked out and went to the right meeting and met the right people. And 2 months later, we were in the original location of Three Brothers Home, 115 North Genesee. And it seems, but it's all like, it was just being in the right spot at the right time. Like there was no mad hustle to it or really grinding. You know, we had one season in Iowa City, but we've been incredibly lucky being down here.
Yeah. And again, most of this stuff is just a lot of the legwork and groundwork was really coming from Josh and Caroline's standpoint as well, because again, like he was saying, I was living in Chicago and the two of them were up in the suburbs, so they had a lot more access to that as well. So, so like most of the inner workings and dealings are all with that guy right there.
I can't wait to see the recording and find out where we're actually
pointing. That guy right there.
And really, from day one, you know, even back in Iowa City, there was a certain aesthetic, I think, of like us just following what entertained us. At least that's how I feel about it. In sense, I'm not sure how you felt about it. Oh no, you've frozen. Are you still there?
That goes over in the podcast.
Right. I have no idea what happened. Like you froze and then the meeting just canceled itself.
Oh, well, I was the one that left the meeting because you froze. So I figured like, okay, I'll just go ahead and restart, see what goes from there. But it's okay. We'll fix that in post, right?
Right. That's what post is for. I was saying it seemed like from the beginning, from my perspective, I don't know if it's the same for you, that really we were just kind of following our own interests and like what entertained us theatrically.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Or at least it started that way. And it became more apparent after the first season in Waukegan. Definitely. I think season 1 in Iowa City, absolutely. We were like, you know what? Let's go ahead and do all this fun stuff because there's literally no pressure on us here too, because we're paying peanuts for renting of these small little spaces that we're doing this stuff. And again, we're working with friends and everything that we know that are in the arts community too. And, you know, we have a built-in audience of like artists and friends from having spent so many years in Iowa City between college and then after graduation too. But once we moved out here, I think we still had a little bit of that like higher minded artistic side to us as well, which I think the flu season was definitely kind of a big wake up call for us. And for those of you that don't know, the flu season is it's a dramedy of sorts. But that was another one of those shows that one wasn't really well known. It was a show where the cast was, again, people that we all like knew and were friends with. And it was another one of those shows that did not get a big audience turnout.
Right. We all knew about it and had read it for like years.
Yeah.
And I still love it. I love Willino to a certain extent. But nobody was terribly familiar with it. And the show is a little bit, the tone is difficult to navigate because it's dealing with some serious subject matters, but also there's lots of comedy in it, and a lot of dark comedy with it. But yeah, I think that was definitely the point where it was like, what's the voice here? But I think even now we continue to like embrace these, I think what other people may call like lowbrow, highbrow aesthetics, where we're willing to be like, we're going to do something like an importance of being earnest, which content-wise may not necessarily be highbrow, but is referred to as like more of a highbrow comedy or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, they have accents.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, we're not afraid of doing sketch comedy in a bar, you know?
Yeah.
because that's just us.
If there's art to be done, let us know and give us a venue, give us a time frame, and we'll find something to fill in there.
Yeah, I think that's, and it's been
That's the mission statement right there.
right.
It only took us 9 years to figure that thing out too.
Have stage, will fill it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, and I think it's a weird, like, because that's just what we like and love. Like, other than I don't like musicals.
Well, that's okay. Your heavy hand in the overall scales of determining what we're going to perform is evened out by a large portion of the rest of the
everybody else.
the rest of the family that really actually enjoys doing them. So
I think the big thing for us is that we just love theater and storytelling, period.
Yeah.
That, we're gonna do all of it at some point. So embracing the long arc of the life cycle of this theater is, we're gonna get to those things eventually.
Yeah.
At the same time that we were doing those shows in Iowa City in the first year here, we were also, we did Wolf at the Door, which was a theater for young audiences show.
And it was rehearsed and memorized in 6 hours, something like that.
Something like that.
With a complete impromptu performance of it, unmemorized. It was the Press Citizen that we did that for.
Oh,
we just made up everything on the spot, pretty much. Yeah. Oh boy. I think that night we were like, oh, okay, if we're actually going to be doing this, we might want to buckle down and actually concentrate on this. I mean, we faked it all the way through that interview with the reporter, and it was a great review, but the pictures that were taken were nothing like anything that was actually staged for the show. It was hilarious.
So to set it up just a little bit further, I don't even remember 100%. So we, at the time in Iowa City, there's a lovely organization called the Iowa Children's Museum. I'm not actually sure if they're still there. I need to find out if they are. They were great. They were wonderful hosts to us, and they had a nice theater, and offered to host us to do a kids show. And so we did Wolf at the Door there. But the Iowa City Press Citizen wanted to do a write-up on the show, but they wanted to see the show. And I don't think we'd even rehearsed it once.
No, I don't think so.
And I had to, in the first of a couple of Josh acting bits, I think I had to stand in for somebody because they couldn't be there.
Yeah.
And for those who don't know, just because you write a show does not mean you have the show in your mind.
Yeah.
So we made up the whole thing to get some press. A little bit disingenuous, but obviously rose-tinted glasses. I remember the improv being better than the actual show. I think we came up with some plot points during that improv that were better than what I wrote.
Yeah, maybe. I think I remember one of our guys, Ryan Westwood, taking the Little Red Riding Hood cape around his shoulders and then getting into a karate fight with the wolf. I think that was a bit that we just made up on the spot right there.
I think so. I think you're absolutely right. Brilliant. Didn't make the cut of the show.
Yeah.
Probably should add it back in.
Yeah. One of the many rewrites that we've been saying we're going to do, and eventually we'll get around to.
Right. Now's probably the best time.
Yeah.
Um, so from these very kind of selfish roots back in the day, like even though we were kind of playing to what we wanted to see, I think we've brought in quite a few people over those years that are still involved, or who may not be heavily involved anymore, but are still, great friends of ours. How do you see the scope of the theater changing over time?
Oh, it's changed in again, kind of like what we were touching on, that what started as something, inherently for, selfish and pleasurable reasons about why we wanted to do theater has vastly changed to the point where, okay, we're constantly thinking about, what the overall like flow of a season is going to be. We're not just, coming up with ideas, out of our back pocket with, 8 weeks before we have it's supposed to have a show. We're just like, oh no, we're actually thinking about long term, like, okay, these are projects that we want to work with. These are messages that are being like told through the story. This is a message that we want to go ahead and, like, as a theater company, be able to bring to the forefront for our audience as well. But then also, it's changed from, a group of people who are just hanging out for fun to making sure that we have performers and artists of the best possible caliber for us to work with, because we've come to hold ourselves to such a high standard of work that we expect of ourselves and everybody else expects out of us too.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's probably one of the biggest shifts that I've noticed as well, is that the quality that our audiences hold us to now is so much higher than it was when we first did, Night of the Living Dead or Santa Claus Conquers the Martians, which for me, that was the big turning point for us. That's when lightning really struck, and it gave us, that shot of adrenaline and all that momentum to keep building towards where we are right now too.
Yeah, I think so. I think, any organization, they say for a business, if you can get out of 5 years, like, and you're good. But I think especially
5 years of a little luck.
Right. I think especially with a nonprofit organization and a nonprofit theater, it's like, if you can get past the first couple years, like you can grind out and get further. But like, we have grown in several terms, in several ways, and in bringing more people into the fold, increasing the show quality in many ways, in scenically, lighting, acting, and I think things just keep continuing to build and improve in that magical way that everybody hopes for. I'm really excited to see, as we come out of this whole pandemic that we're in right now, how we come out of it even better than before. Because really, better than anyone, since we started, we've basically been going at an insane pace.
What's faster than ludicrous speed? Because I feel that's what we've been at for 8 years.
For 8 years, and this has been really the first moment to kind of take a beat and pause, which I don't know how you feel about it. It has been kind of, it's been nice for me, a kind of enforced, I wouldn't say vacation, but a kind of enforced break to just cool the jets a little while. But also think about, when we come back, what does Three Brothers look like? What do we do? How did we improve over that time, in terms of everything? I guess that's my long-winded way of asking you, how have you handled your COVID crisis?
By maintaining as much creative, energy as possible. So aside from the weekly storytellings that I've been doing with a lot of the children's books that I've gotten to read for all the parents and teachers out there who would suddenly found themselves either without kids in the classroom, like, face to face, or parents who all of a sudden find themselves with, two, like, some kids that they weren't expecting to be home during the daytime, just giving them a chance to have like a little bit of a break and to be, whether it's 15, 20 minutes, like once a week, just giving them a chance for some kind of entertainment. And plus to be able for me just to, read a story, do some voices, act a little bit silly and be like, okay, I mean, it, breaks up the monotony of it right there too.
Sure.
But definitely like the little checklist that I've had when everything was first starting out with the like all the businesses being shut down and whatnot too, at this massive list. And I thought, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and come out of this quarantine just so much better. I'm gonna learn ASL. I'm gonna relearn Spanish. I'm gonna go ahead and try to carve out my name in a stone of granite or something. Of which none of those three things have happened, but I've gotten really good at hand sewing, gotten really much better at baking and cooking. No bread yet. I just, there are way too many pictures of bread on the internet right now too. There's something a loaf about it. I don't like it.
It's funny to me how many trends have happened, like how many micro trends have happened in like 3 months' time.
Yeah.
The bread.
I think I saw something today that said, man, do you guys remember when Tiger King was the most normal part of 2020?
Crazy. Yeah, I've been, I should have started meditating when this first all started. That would have probably been the wisest course of action. But I feel like all I've done is write plans and then erase plans. Because the goalposts just keep shifting.
Yeah.
But
just aim for the double doink. You'll be fine.
But
sorry, Bears fans.
But I'm really at this point. I know that there's been a lot of stuff that's happened over the last couple months, but I'm strangely more optimistic for when we get back together physically and are able to be in rooms together to do things. I'm more excited and more optimistic about what we'll be able to do and how we'll go about things than I was at the beginning of all this. I think it's been a nice opportunity for reflection and to think about other things that we may be able to do and even start a couple things that maybe we've been talking about for years, but just haven't had the time. And I'm interested to see how we can continue to, there's a weird saying around the Democratic Party, and this is not a political statement in any way, that, we're a big open tent and there's room for all. And that's strangely how I've always felt about Three Brothers in some regards, is that we do a lot of things, we do a lot of different things. And I've always hoped and envisioned that, everyone is welcome here. And I want everyone to come play in the sandbox with us.
Yeah. And I mean, to that point too, I think with everything that's been going on, I mean, these past 3 months have really kind of forced any artist to go ahead and kind of take stock in, what they like, parts of their creative lives that they really value as well. And I mean, sure, something like what we're doing right now, having a this conversation right here. For those of you who are watching, that you can see us interacting. For those of you that are listening, I'm looking at his ugly mug right now too. But also, yeah, to which I'm sure Caroline was most disappointed. But I feel when we do get back to the point where we are able to have a whole bunch of creative individuals in the same room at the same time, it's going to bring back such an amazing energy, because all these people have probably been jonesing for some kind of interaction and with people on a personal level like that. They've been cut off from this for 3 months right there. And for a lot of people that don't have any kind of outlet, like Three Brothers has allowed having meetings talking about, hey, what's the direction that we're going to be headed in once we come out of this quarantine. For those people, it's going to be so much built up relief once they're actually able to get together with someone, be able to actually fist bump someone, to hug someone, to actually play in some sort of scene with them. And I think it's just going to be this massive bubbling over of creative energy and creativity coming from all these artists as well, especially based on what their experience has been, going through this quarantine and how they were able to react to it as well. So I think that once we get everybody together, I think the absolute level of artistic creation is just going to skyrocket in the best ways possible too.
Mm. So I have a loaded question for you that I think will be
bacon and chives in it.
What's that?
Does the loaded question have bacon and chives with it?
No chives. No chives.
Oh, okay. I can do that.
No onion. Because it's something I realized that I think we had a conversation a couple weeks ago that kind of skirted around this, and I always wonder what your thought is about this, but never ask you directly. But it's not a good question. It's the stock interview question.
Oh boy.
But I think it'd be good for us to start this conversation because here, but it's also a conversation for others in the organization too. Mm-hmm. But what is success for you, and what is success for Three Brothers?
Oh boy. Well, so success for me, and this is honestly kind of the reason that I got into acting at the beginning too. And I mean, so of course this goes back to my junior year in high school. So back in 2003, I wanted to get into acting because one, I could tell that I was really good at performing. I was really good at speaking in front of people. I was good at entertaining. And when you look at all these people that you see in Hollywood or, on TV, in the movies and whatnot, I mean, they're seen at all times. They're the people that people want to emulate. They're the people that people aspire to be like because they're seen. They're in the public eye. For me, growing up, I was not oftentimes seen as a person who would really have a lot of success later in life. And for me, again, selfishly, I wanted to be seen. I wanted to kind of be like, hey, guess what? I made something of myself, and now everybody can see it right now. As the years have gone on, however, and I've had more experiences in theater and dealing with so many creative types, and it's both on stage and behind stage too. And I think college was a huge help in defining who I am as a performer, because I didn't perform much when I was actually in college. I worked so much more behind the scenes. And for me, success has transitioned into working with a theater company and ideally being able to do that full time and still being able to make a living, to be able to pay rent and pay bills, but still have that creative voice that I get to share with everybody. And even if that is just eking out whatever living I need, then that's fine with me, because I get to know that I'm still telling a story, and hopefully through that storytelling be able to make people feel something, whether it's joy, whether it's sorrow, whether it's like, oh my gosh, that was so funny. I took a piss in my Depends while I was watching it. Or, hey, I need my handkerchief because that was the saddest thing I've ever seen. It's just being a storyteller and making people feel, and to be able to make a living from it. That for me is what success has turned into in the, oh wow, I guess 17 years since I first decided I wanted to start doing this. And I guess as far as what I think of success for Three Brothers, it's, I think it's to continue building our rapport with the communities that we've gotten a chance to perform for. And not just with the communities that we've been able to perform for. I think there are so many more like audiences that we can still bring in to tell these stories as well. It shouldn't just be defined to the audience members that we know we can count on who love coming to see our shows, but find ways to keep bringing in new and different members of the audience as well, and show them that, hey, this is a story that we want to go ahead and share with you. This is a story that we want to tell for you. And I think continuing to build that relationship with our audiences, not only in Waukegan, but really as far of a reach as we can, whether it's like throughout Lake County, whether it's through northeastern Illinois, whether it's all throughout the Midwest. I think the more that we can expand our message that, hey, the arts are for everyone. It's not just for a select few, and making them feel that they're part of an artistic family. I think that's what I think the definition of success for Three Brothers is and will continue to be.
Mm. Agreed. Yeah, for me, it's to continue to be able to tell stories and to tell my stories, obviously, of course. I think of I think I'm aligned in the same way you are. Like, I would like to be, gainfully employed by the theater, just so I can make that my number one. Like, that's my living as a storyteller, and getting the option to be able to tell the stories that we want to tell. And I think and I think it's for the theater as well, but also for me to continue to keep expanding out in terms of giving people more opportunities. And I think it's on both ends of, like, both artists and audience. I want to give audiences the option to see whatever they'd like to see, and kind of confound the expectation of what is theater, because it's so many different things, but it's regarded as a kind of monolith in some ways, I think. We still have questions of, do I need to dress up to come see a show? And I'm like, well, I'm not, so you shouldn't either.
Well, I would say, definitely dress up, because, pants are usually a good idea.
Pants. Yeah. Please don't come nude, but you don't have to wear a suit or put on dress shoes, unless you want to. That's your thing. Do it. But I'm wearing sneakers tonight, so
I'm wearing dress shoes tonight.
Right.
And that's just how it goes.
Right. But also on an artist level, just because I've always I've had great opportunities and no opportunities in my career, and I've always found that it just works better for me if I create those opportunities for myself. So I've always kind of wanted to keep passing it down in some ways, and I think that's kind of what we do with Three Brothers, is that we keep expanding on a content level, but that's also because we want to be more and more involved with people, and keep those artists around us, because they're our friends and because they make us better. and it's a feeling of togetherness and like a family, like you said. The worst thing that I feel about theater is the audition process, where we actually have to tell no to people. Like, I hate that. That's the worst feeling, because I want to cast everyone, and I want everyone to be here and have a good time, and break bread with us, and laugh and cry, and
well, to kind of turn the interview back on you, is that part of the reason why you enjoy doing, or why you feel that we continue to do so many shows as well, is to keep giving those opportunities to people that we have to say no to on one project, and in lieu of saying no to working on one show, you're like, hey, but we would love to go ahead and have you in this show as well.
I think so too. I mean, I think yes. There's always in the back of my mind, a rotating list of like, oh, this person was really great. It didn't fit right for this current show, but like, what can we do for them in the future? There's like, for instance, there's one person, to circle back to Will Eno, actually, because that's where the conversation is today. There's one person who actually pitched to me that like 3 years ago, that he really wants to do this show that's called Tom Paine Based on Nothing, and it's a one-person show. Tonally, it's also a difficult show because there's a lot of almost stand-up-y type ridicule of the audience done for comedy's sake. But he's such a person that tonally, I think he could do it well. And every other month, I'm like, I gotta reach back out to that guy and talk to him and see if he still wants to do it. And we will add that show just for that person, because we had a great experience with them. We want to keep them involved. But maybe that's just, I have terrible separation anxiety. Maybe that's just the whole problem.
That's why you haven't ever thrown away a script that you've written.
That you know of. There is.
Oh, God.
Some were not salvageable. All right. Yeah. Well, thank you very much for carving out some time today. This will not be our last conversation.
Oh boy, do I ever know that.
And definitely not our last probably recorded conversation.
Once again, I definitely know that.
Do you have anything else you'd like to say to anyone who's going to listen or watch us?
Well, there is one quote that still sticks with me, and this is from like the very early days of the podcast, so 2-ish years ago, and it was with Brad Paschall, who again is one of those frequent flyers who helps us out in so many different capacities, as much as his schedule allows him to be able to. And I just still remember him saying that there was a quote that he once heard that somebody asked him, and they asked, "Why do you do theater?" And he said, "I can think of a million reasons why I love to do theater, but money isn't one of them." And honestly, that's kind of what I feel like everybody who gets involved with Three Brothers is. We have a million different reasons why people will want to work with us, whether it's, the story happens to be awesome for them, or hey, they get to go ahead and work with a full like lighting grid, or hey, we're going to go ahead and like build a couple ramps and have some trees backlit and whatnot too. There's just so many different things about it, and people they won't just come because we try to pay, or we pay all of our artists, because it's not enough to go ahead and make a living. It's just kind of a nice way to say thank you. So yeah, the people that we get to bring up are coming up because they want to be part of that family that we've created. They want to go ahead and express their artistic abilities. They want to like tell the story that we are.
Mhm.
And money isn't going to go ahead and be the defining reason for them to show up. I always thought that was a very enlightening quote right there. So thank you very much, Brad.
Thank you, Brad. All right, sir. I will say goodbye to you, and good night, or good afternoon, or good morning to anyone else.
Guten Nacht.
Enjoy your day.
Buenas noches. Adios.
Till next time.